All right, now let's get started with this core implementation, and this is the implementation which is going to derive this your entire logic here, right? So that's the base of that any clean architecture project here. So we'll start with this. Let's go ahead and delete this first. We don't need that. And what I'm going to do here is I'll just go ahead and create one directory over here or one folder, basically that entities itself, and that is going to contain our entities. And let's call this movies entity itself, right? So I'm going to have this, let's say, movie itself, and in that I'll just have certain properties here. Like let's go ahead and create, let's say, a movie name, director name or release here. So let's go ahead and drop these props, and we can further extend this from its entity itself. So what I'm going to do here is I'll just go ahead and create this entity class, because I'm going to have this certain basic audit related stuff needs to be injected from entity itself. Let's go ahead and create this, and we'll mark this under the base implementation itself. And let's create this base folder first of all, and in that I'm just going to have this entity created, and that's going to be my abstract class, basically, because all the base properties I'm going to put that into entity itself, right? So and let's go ahead and create this, and let's call this entity itself. And now let's mark this class first of all this as an abstract class, and it should be derived from my entity base, and there I will be deriving like how it needs to be, my id needs to be substituted, because let's say if you are working with SQL Server or MongoDB, that's fine. So in case of SQL Server, id can be your substituted with int, and let's say you are shifting to, let's say, any other data adapter, let's say Mongo, where your id can be of type string. So you can simply substitute that with that implementation what I'm passing over here. This is going to be a blueprint for the id, and that's what it is going to have this entity base itself. So now let's go ahead and create this entity base, and let's put that here itself. And that's how it's going to look like. And this entity base is going to be frankly speaking is again one my abstract class itself. And here what I'm going to have is like it's going to simply take this tid, right? And tid is going to be is basically my substitutable id itself, and that's going to implement, let's say, let's enforce this from interface itself. And what I'm going to do here is, let's say, I entity base of tid, right? And when I say this, in which case I would need to have one interface, and let's go ahead and create this with the name I entity base itself. And when I say this I entity base, it's going to be a simple interface which is going to accept uh, that id itself, which we are going to supply from that entity itself. And then what it can take is of type tid and that id itself. So that's what is going to get from here itself. Now once this is done, in which case we can just simply go ahead and simply go ahead and implement this thing, right? So let's go ahead and implement that, implement missing member, and let's mark this as virtual itself so that we can override. And let's have this protected set, because I just want to have this from my derived class, or its members to set this property. So once this thing is done, what other thing which we can have here is like that, of course, this entity here, which is now resolved. So if you just see this entity here, this is going to take this entity base from int, and here we are substituting this that tid with int itself. So in which case my movie, it should be coming from this entity itself. And now we can resolve this, and yep, so now this is fine. So here id will be substituted from this tid itself, and that is going to be your simple movie id itself. So that's the base structure of this. Now in the next case, what we are going to do is we are going to create this repository here, and we are going to see the base version of that. So let's jump to the next clip itself.